How's it going, guys? My name's Graham and welcome to Two Left Thumbs. The other day I was feeling a little bit nostalgic. I was trying to look up old WarCraft 3 custom maps that I used to play, not realizing that we're actually getting WarCraft 3 Reforged later this month. It's due out January 28th, so I kind of feel like the timing of this is just perfect. And with that in mind, I wanted to share my 5 favorite custom maps in WarCraft 3. And I want to say right away, I'm not trying to definitively say what the all-time 5 best are. This is a purely subjective list based on my own experiences. In general, I just wasn't very good at RTS games, but they were a favorite of my brother's, so we owned StarCraft and WarCraft 3. I had a lot of fun playing the campaigns, and maybe the odd game with or against some friends, but I pretty much just got wrecked anytime I tried to play actual competitive online games. I would much rather open up Age of Empires 2, build 1,000 of a unit, and then delete them all for maximum enjoyment. I wasn't hopeless at WarCraft, but I just really wasn't very good at it. I'd see my older brother flipping through hotkeys, actually balancing micro and macro, to a level that just felt totally unattainable, so I decided I wouldn't even bother. Instead, when it was my turn to tie up the family phone line with our awful dial-up, I played nothing but custom maps. For anyone unfamiliar, WarCraft 3 had this insanely robust map creator. You could use it for something as simple as creating your own original levels to play the normal game on, or something more complex like your own campaign with heroes, missions, and rudimentary cutscenes. But the Blizzard team provided users with tool sets that went way beyond that, letting them tinker with every possible facet of the game, coding in unique events and interactions. Through this, users were able to create their own custom games within the larger game of WarCraft 3. StarCraft had this as well, but it was more advanced in WarCraft 3, and that was the one I personally got invested in. While not directly modding since it's built into the game, I would imagine most people are aware of this custom map function through the invention of the entire MOBA genre, being the progenitor of Dota. Ever wondered why Dota 2 is on Steam with no Dota 1 anywhere in sight? That's because the original game is exclusively a custom map in WarCraft 3, similar to how Counter-Strike started as a mod for Half-Life, DayZ from Arma 2, or the Stanley Parable out of Half-Life 2. It's a highly specific and very rich corner of video game development, games being spawned from other games. Playing these custom maps back in the day, I was really picky about what I liked, and having a dial-up connection, I had to be pretty choosy about what I spent that limited time on. Dota, for example, would be on a lot of people's lists, but it had this huge barrier of entry where people were huge dickheads to you if you were a beginner at the game, so I felt chased away from that entirely after 1 or 2 attempts, and never really came back to it. Okay, that's plenty of time spent setting the stage. I think it's time we start getting into the actual list. Coming in as my number 5, Legend of Dragoon. This was a massive open-world RPG game. It was so large that you would never ever be able to complete it in one sitting, which introduces maybe the best part of it, that you could save and load your character with a generated seed, a concept that I can't believe they actually managed to squeeze into WarCraft's map editor. I remember having multiple scrap pieces of paper with like 25 characters each scrawled out on them, making sure you didn't mess up your O's and your zeros and everything was case sensitive, because if you lost that code, you lost all of your character progress. You would then have to manually re-enter it whenever you rejoined a game, but from there you could pick up exactly where you left off. I have no concept of how popular this game was. I get the impression that it wasn't very widely played. Maybe there were other giant RPGs in WarCraft that were more popular, but this is the one I remember enjoying the most. For wider context, I personally didn't like playing games like Diablo online because I always felt like I was either slowing down the other players or being slowed down by them, so I always felt tied down to a group of strangers, never really enjoying the resulting pacing. Dragoon might have actually been my introduction to the open world concept. You could go anywhere, challenging yourself to gain quicker levels early on and totally ignoring what everyone else was doing, only occasionally teaming up if it felt right. I played this game for a fairly long time, but after a week or so I started noticing the same groups of people logging in. This is the first and maybe only time I remember adding friends through a video game. We never really scheduled meetups, but if we were online at the same time, we made sure to play together. But while we were in-game, we were tackling our own missions and own part of the map, simply chatting about our successes and failures as we worked through separate parts of the world. So while the game was pretty fun, I think I likely enjoyed the community aspect more than anything else. This is absolutely my weird out there pick, the one I think maybe people may not have heard of. I guarantee that the other ones were much more common, and if you've ever picked up a WarCraft custom map, there's a good chance you came across them. So don't expect them pulling this kind of hipster BS on all 5 of these. Playing this again just today to get footage for this video, I realize it's maybe more of a grind than I remembered, and maybe it's not that exciting overall, but I think a big appeal is that the pace didn't really matter when you knew that your progress would carry forward, and it looks like newer updates made the save code less absurdly long. Honestly, in just my short time with it, I found some new exploits for leveling up and gaining gold quicker than I ever could before. So I took some small new pleasure in that, laughing at my 16-year-old self's stupid face. Number 4, we have Uther Party. Definitely one of the all-time most popular custom games. There's Uther Party 1, Ultima, and 2. I don't remember at all which I played. I honestly felt like I had to download a new version every time I logged in.
It's hammer time.
But in general, Uther Party is a nice first look at how far removed these custom maps could get from traditional RTS gameplay. We had our very own Mario Party within WarCraft. Well, at the very least, we had the minigame aspect. It took like 10 more years before anyone bothered making any sort of PC Mario Party style game. And even then, there's almost no options that had the player base that WarCraft did. Logging into Battle.net, there's almost always guaranteed to be at least one game of this to jump into. And believe it or not, it's one of the earliest custom maps to go beyond simple reimaginings of the standard melee RTS combat. Up until that point, people were just kind of making their own custom maps to play the regular game in. But when Uther Party came on the scene, players latched on very quickly and created a surge of interest in what the custom map editor was truly capable of. Each minigame was only about 1 to 2 minutes long, and a session played through 8 randomly selected games. At the end of those 8 games, a winner was crowned based on whoever had won the most games, allowing them to then choose the 8 follow-up games everyone would play. At that point, the competitive element is kind of eased off, and you just get to sit back and enjoy some of your favorites. It was the privilege of winning, is getting to select the games you liked. The variety of games was very large, and they were pretty much all wildly silly. The humor in the game overall is actually just kinda great. But probably the best thing Uther Party did was play around with the in-game camera. One game would go from the standard isometric view to a top-down Minotaur-style maze, to yet another that's closer to a third-person view, even though it's all rooted in these same basic building blocks. Mixing it up in that way did make things feel rather distinct. A funny thing from a design perspective is that all of this had to coexist on a single map. The game wasn't spawning and removing these arenas and minigames each time one was needed. They all existed on the map at once, and it was simply the camera moving to a different part of a grid-like map and spawning in the players. Looking back, that limitation of space likely worked in the game's favor. All these little minigames had to be really tight and economic with their use of space. Limitation breeds creativity, right? The worst part is on occasion, you would get eliminated in the first seconds of a game that takes 2 minutes. This was especially bad if you had a poor connection like me and had some pretty bad lag to work against. You might be stuck sitting around for a while in between, but there were plenty of game types overall. In addition to those that were more last man standing based, there were others about completing an objective first, keeping with the rhythm, rapid key inputs, all sorts of weird individual examples with a variety that should sound really familiar to any Mario Party players. Quick, reliable, and loads of fun. Number 3, I'm giving to SpellCraft, a game that I think was really popular early on in the custom map days, and I'm not sure if it really stuck around. It certainly had a peak and valley of popularity. At the time, myself and a friend of mine were basically only playing the odd tower defense games together. I hadn't really branched out and just kind of assumed that this was always going to be my favorite style of custom game. Looking back, SpellCraft was probably my true gateway to custom maps. If I really think about it, it's probably because it's about the only one I actually remember seeing my brother play. Seeing as he was way more into the actual game, he didn't really play custom maps, and the fact that he was willing to play this one repeatedly must have meant there was something there. Now, keep in mind, on dial-up internet, you had to download these individual maps, and when you had crappy limited internet, it was easiest to play games you had already downloaded, or else people would boot you out for slowing down the process. So part of the motivation was, I'll try it out because we already have it. It ended up being extremely complex, but rewarding in its insanity. Later versions of the game included various game modes that I'm not really familiar with. I only remember playing what is now known as Battle Mode. The footage I'm showing right now is actually from Gladiator Mode, which seems to be what everyone plays these days. I actually found multiple examples of videos where someone selected a different mode, everyone got mad, and started dropping out of the game. Everyone spawns in as a very basic mage character. You have to collect combinations of 3 elements: water, earth, storm, fire, light, dark, energy, and chaos. Combining these elements result in your wizard learning one of 170 different spells. Now, they didn't have to be unique elements. For example, 3 earth would teach you Entangle to summon forth damaging roots and hold the other mage in place. I just realized I'm interchanging mage and wizard. Doesn't matter, they both cast spells. While collecting earth, water would teach treants, allowing you to summon little tree minions to help you out. A little pro tip for you guys, or at the very least a strategy I liked, was gunning for a summoning spell as quickly as possible. They could work as shields to absorb some of the damage coming at you, and also maybe output a little extra damage to maybe kill wizards more quickly. Now I'm going to intentionally alternate what I call them. My favorite part was the absolute chaos of that spell crafting trial and error. You likely had learned one or two favorite spell combinations that you would try your hardest to learn quickly in-game, and then start grabbing any unfamiliar combos you could find to see if you could come up with a new favorite. But more often than not, you would get 2 elements in, not be able to acquire the one you were lacking, quickly grab up something random, and end up with a totally new spell combo you had never seen before. I imagine there was the odd person playing who had memorized everything and knew all the best strategies, but the way elements spawned into the game was quite random, so you were never guaranteed to get what you wanted. It was about making do with what you had, adapting, and utilizing it to the best of your ability. It was a fun mix of action and strategy. I definitely have fond memories of that, and on a semi-regular basis will play a more modern game that has some sort of similar combination mechanic, and my brain always immediately goes back and wonders if those developers had played SpellCraft. Number 2, Footmen Custom. One of the most popular and enduring custom map series was Footmen Frenzy, or Footies as it was commonly known, and in general the series was my favorite game for a very, very long time. Hell, I even had my own iteration of it, Creep Frenzy. It was literally just a reskin of a particular version I liked, and I made it kind of as an excuse to play around with the map editor. I felt like I had made some really important balancing changes, but I was probably also like 14 at the time, and who the hell knows? It was probably terrible. In a game of Footmen, the map is separated into 4 pockets in the corners, which make up the different team bases, and then one giant center area where all the battles happen. You start inside your own base alongside your 2 teammates. Every person has a single hero to begin with, although you can get more, and you have a central building that continuously spawns generic footmen, just continuously bumping them out one after another. Everything builds and builds until a final release when someone finally breaks that seal and runs out into the middle. You'll get a few teases here and there where someone walks in and out testing the waters, but eventually there is a single tipping point that triggers the events of the rest of the game. Once that first battle hits, people are then continuously sending in and pulling back their troops. It's pretty strategic to choose whether to join the war or not, whether you send out every single footman, and in general how to best maximize your hero's potential. The footmen themselves are incredibly disposable. Each footman killed is experience for your hero and gold for whoever killed it. If you manage to kill another hero, you gain a big payday, and they'll have to wait several minutes to respawn into the game. There is a really well executed balance here. Continuous risk and reward. You want to fight to earn gold and level up your hero, but taking part in the fight is providing potential fuel for everyone else. Eventually, you earn enough gold that you can begin upgrading your footmen, choosing a branching path of units to upgrade to. You can also improve their stats, investing in things like attack and defense, while also buying individual gear, potions, portals, and all that sort of jazz for your hero. As people started to advance to the next tiers, there would be this dramatic shift where you are left behind in footmen, and you're seeing things like riflemen or grunts running around everywhere. This is another tipping point. Once one person has advanced, it's now a race to not get left behind. You absolutely don't want to be the last one to upgrade. Everyone's saving up for their own benefits, but you might also have to pick up the slack of your teammates. Otherwise, you'll all be disadvantaged, and your now useless footmen will pretty much only serve as free money for more powerful players. A common strategy became upgrading to the next tier and then killing all your remaining footmen, just to keep those points out of other players' hands. But if their hero was strong or sneaky enough, they could run in and farm a bunch of easy footman kills. There was a lot of really fun dynamics there. The matches were often only about 30 minutes, and as the rich get richer and start to eliminate players entirely by killing their base, the eventual rise of a winner is quite exponential. Once one of the 3 in a team falls, it's almost impossible for the other 2 to pull out a win. While I truly loved Footmen Frenzy and chose to lump it in together with this, I almost never played it again once I discovered Footmen Custom. While I don't think it ever matched the widespread peak popularity of standard footies, it pretty well improved everything. It was made by a group of people who felt the core game was feeling a little bit boring, still well done, but just stale after years of being played, and their main goal was to reinvigorate things. The isolated map layout was blown wide open to allow for new strategies. There were far more heroes who played much more differently than the adapted heroes of standard WarCraft 3. A unique set of heroes with their own skills really in its own would have changed everything. But then the tier system of upgrading your footmen was also completely revamped, and at the start of a match, players voted on specific rule sets that they wanted to play with. You could have entirely random heroes and random unit tiers that meant things were far more replayable and nobody could rest on one tried and true strategy or combination. In some ways similar to SpellCraft, it was about adapting and making the most of it. There's all sorts of extra upgrades and things you can apply to your army as a whole with these like separate shops off in the distance. There's a million different items and things that you can equip to your hero, including taking on quests, like for example staying alive for the next 7 minutes, at which point you earn an item, or maybe killing a certain number of units, things like that. It completely changes the way you choose to play that round. There were even small quality of life improvements. You're playing as these custom heroes that you've probably never seen before. You don't need the disadvantage of learning the hotkeys for your particular skills while trying to manage your units and all that chaos, so they specifically mapped the 4 hero skills to Z, X, C, and V. So no matter what hero you played as, if you had your hand on that spot on the keyboard, you could queue up your spells super rapidly. That's so awesome. I don't remember playing any other custom games that had that. I genuinely hope that the people who worked on this game moved on to become game developers of some sort, and if that is the case, then I want to play it. If you ever played and enjoyed Footmen Frenzy, I strongly encourage you to seek out and try Footmen Custom. It plays like an entirely new game. Now, before getting into the big number one, I want to share a few honorable mentions. These are other games that I loved in their own way, either for their originality, very active micro communities, or just plain stupid fun. I have 4 of them in this list, which nearly doubles the regular list, but I'll spend much less time on each of these. And saying top 9 maps looks dumb in a title and thumbnail. In no particular order, we have Run Kitty Run. This is somewhat of a cooperative game, but cooperative to an extent, similar to something like Little Big Planet. You run through this spiraled map working towards the center, filled with crazy hazards and checkpoints. You're all trying to attempt to survive to the next checkpoint, spawning in everyone else to you when the first person reaches it. And that's the important part. Only one person needs to reach it. But if you all die before someone does, it's game over. So it's beneficial to revive a fallen player, although you risk dying to the very same trap. The frantic nature of trying to navigate and communicate was always a riot, while still technically wanting to be the first one to the finish. The weirdest thing about this is that people would import custom tracks to play over the game, rather than using the standard WarCraft 3 battle style tracks. There were these strange high-pitched or super fast distorted songs. They always felt super random, and now would feel quite meme-like. A few of the ones I remember hearing were Linkin Park's Numb, Nickelback's How I Remind You, and Limp Bizkit's cover of Behind Blue Eyes.
Onward! Leading the way. Onward!
But almost every version had 2 or 3 random tracks that you were bound to hear, and in some small way that was a big part of the enjoyment, even if it was pretty annoying at times. Next is Custom Hero Arena Defense. I'm pretty sure there was also Custom Hero Defense and survival variations, and that some people seem to have a weird hate on for the arena style. I can't weigh in on that, it was the only version I ever played. Everyone started out with a hero, and you would play in your own little mini arena. You would have to survive an onslaught of enemies during a set time limit. And if you were really killing it out there, you could push things further, not just surviving, but maximizing your kills. Really, this is the goal. The more you kill, the more rewards you would receive. In between these defensive rounds, everyone would be teleported back to a central hub, where you have a few minutes to spend that hard-earned cash on skills and gear. The customization aspect of this was so successful that I managed to find a series of 2019 YouTube videos where people share their optimal builds for this custom map. The same way that someone shows off how to make a Hammerden in Diablo 2, people are telling you how to make a perfect Dreadlord for custom hero defense. I think there's something really special about that. At the end of that 20th round, everyone's heroes are dropped into an arena to duke it out for supremacy. I think in the non-arena versions of it, it was more that just when your hero died in one of those timed segments, you were out for good, and you were just trying to last for more rounds than anyone else. Honestly, that sounds maybe cooler, but again, I only played arena myself. It was an interesting concept, but at its heart, it may have had some pretty distinct balancing issues. I seem to somewhat recall learning one effective combo that I did just every single time until I got bored of that repetition and stopped playing. Really though, thinking about it now, that's kind of my fault for not putting more variety into my game. There was Darwin's Island, one I'm less familiar with, but I'm kind of surprised looking back that I didn't play it more. There were a lot of Evolution-style games back then. It was a pretty common thread that people would reskin and re-release things all the time, my own being a proper example of that. And weirdly, multiple of them would be successful, and people always had their favorites. But Darwin's Island is the only Evolution one I remember. You start out as the most pathetic, weak unit possible, and you have to kill other pathetic, weak units to slowly grow and evolve. It's part RPG, part Fishy, the old X-Gen Flash game, and part Hunger Games. It was pretty unbalanced, but it was definitely a fun starting point for a game. You have to rush and risk to level up the fastest to eventually kill all the other players. It was a simple concept, and something you've probably seen before. Certainly not an all-time favorite of mine, but I would like to come back to it. Werewolf. There were loads of different iterations of this one, including Transylvania and Advanced, so I don't really recall which I played. It's entirely derivative of the classic werewolf or mafia-style party game, where one person is randomly assigned the role of werewolf, attempting to secretly kill off the other players. People have maybe played the version where you all sit in a circle and one person narrates, or the board game version, but when it's video gamified, the villagers are allowed to choose an occupation in an effort to raise money during the day. That money was then spent to raise an army in an effort to kill the werewolf. The werewolf blends in, doing their own tasks during the day until the night when they attempt to run out and kill the other players. The panic, accusations, and thrills were just as good as any family game night in person. Even though you were probably typing things out rather than voice chatting to one another, you could really feel the insanity of it through the keyboard. I have seen a lot of video games attempt to recapture this over the years, and the number one thing is that they just don't have the benefit of the built-in WarCraft player base. While trying to refresh my memory of some of these games, I also came across Dark Deeds, which several people say is like the pinnacle best version of Werewolf. That doesn't really seem to be a controversial opinion. People who played this one seem to love it the most, and so I kind of regret that I missed out on Dark Deeds. And my own number one favorite WarCraft 3 custom map was Wintermaul Wars. This is it. In my eyes, this is the crowning achievement of WarCraft custom maps. Some of you may have been slightly offended by the glaring omission of any tower defenses, but there were just so many of them and all of varying quality, with a few that stood out from the pack. Wintermaul was among the best of them, but once I discovered Wintermaul Wars, I essentially never played another TD in WarCraft again. This was a 3 versus 3 showdown that actually added competitive and offensive hooks to a game that was otherwise entirely cooperative and defensive. As per usual TD, everyone would choose their own specific builder that they wanted, which was capable of building its own set of towers that all align within a particular theme and defensive strategy. Same as usual, mobs would filter down through your maze to reach a marked checkpoint before advancing to the next. Wintermaul Wars simplified the setup of a multitude of subdivided tracks, filtering to a specific endpoint down to 2 entry points, 1 exit point. If either the left or right hand leaked, it came down to that final line of defense. This is incredibly unforgiving as is, but becomes all the more wicked when including the true hook of the game. Everyone has an income that came in every few minutes in addition to money earning killing mobs. Now, this money could either be spent building and upgrading towers to hold your line, or, and this is the really juicy bit, spawning the mobs that would then attempt to raid the enemy. You were in full control of what was sent against your enemy and when. Plus, when you invested in sending those units, you raised your aforementioned income. So, while you sacrificed your defenses, you were setting yourself up long-term to afford more towers more often, or potentially send more expensive and more challenging mobs through your enemy lines. The balance of defense and offense was beautifully handled. It was super fun to experiment with, but most people found a strategy that they liked, and rather than it feeling like an easy exploit, it was then a matter of execution. If several people played together who were all comfortable with the game mechanics, it would come down to these micro-strategic decisions of when to upgrade a tower and which tower. Or maybe you commit to building more and fleshing out your maze. When do I send the next mob? How many? Do I space them out? Do I cluster them together? Do you spam weak enemies or save up to launch something more challenging? Every dollar spent was an individual chess piece moved. You have a limited number of lives, same as a TD, and as more and more units make it through your line, dwindling your number down to 0, that is when you would eventually lose. Often these only took about 30 minutes, but I took part in a few that went on to like 2 hours, where our defenses were perfectly countered to one another and we were just spamming some of the best units in the game, and eventually through sheer numbers were able to punch a hole through. It was an incredible showdown. And I think it's a genuine shame that it never became more popular. There were plenty of players, but it always seemed to come second fiddle to standard tower defenses. And while I would love to see a multitude of games on this list reimagined for PC or other standalone releases, deep down I've always wished someone would have made their own version of Wintermaul Wars. One of the most ideal would be a free-to-play mobile version, boiled down to a more aggressive 10-minute match. I could see that becoming incredibly popular. So someone, anyone out there, get on it, or if you already know that it exists, you have to tell me. And there you have it, my 5 all-time favorite custom maps in WarCraft 3, and a few bonus ones. And while this was totally a self-indulgent nostalgia romp for me, it really went from being a concept to a reality when I was reading up on WarCraft 3 Reforged a little bit, and found this little tidbit of knowledge that all of these old custom maps are going to be made to be compatible with this remastered game right from day one. And with the expanded toolsets and the addition of support for up to 24 players, maybe we'll see some amazing new custom maps come from this new generation of players. So when that day comes, keep an eye out for these games, open up either the Hive Workshop or epicwar.com WarCraft.com to download your favorites, and maybe I'll see you online. Do you guys plan to pick up WarCraft 3 Reforged? Are you going to use it to play through the campaign, to play the online game, or are you going to be like me and play only custom maps? I'd also like to hear from you guys what some of your favorite custom maps are. There's just so many of them that there's no way I've ever played all of them. Not even close. So recommendations are always great. Thank you guys so much for indulging me here. I hope you still enjoyed it, and I'll see you again soon.